And so Tri-State serves rural electric cooperatives in the state of Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico, and of course, Wyoming as well. And 8 of our member co-ops are located here in the state of Wyoming. Next slide, please. So this is a overview of the footprint of the Mountain West Transmission Group. Our goal is to create a single multi-company transmission tariff and explore potential day 2 market alternatives. The Mountain West transmission service providers currently include 2 IOUs, that would be Excel and Black Hills Power, and 2 municipals, 2 G&T cooperatives, and 2 federal PMA projects. And I'll go through who those are here in the next slide. Thank you. Mountain West members are a subset of the West Connect planning region called Colorado Coordinated Planning Group, and that's the footprint you see there. The little outline is, again, the Mountain West Transmission Group participants. And often we could see it looks like there's maybe a little tail there. It's often referred to as a squirrel. And this currently includes 7 parties with 9 transmission tariffs. I'll just try to hold this. Maybe I'll just lean down. Yeah, okay. So this is the current transmission owners who are participants. We have Basin Electric, Black Hills Corporation, including its 3 affiliates, which includes Black Hills Power, Black Hills Colorado Electric Utility Company, and Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power Company. We also have Colorado Springs Utilities, Platte River Authority, Public Service Company of Colorado, Tri-State Generation and Transmission, and Western Area Power Administration, which includes both their LAP and their CRISP projects. And there's a little asterisk down here that say others may join prior or post startup. So we're just pointing out that while we started with this group and it makes sense to have the group that we have, we are open to talking with other transmission owners in the area. This is 2013 statistics. Now, of course, we're already in 2016, so you may wonder, why are we showing 2013 statistics? This is what we based our initial analysis on for rate design and cost shifts of developing a joint transmission tariff. We are in the process of updating that using 2015 actual data, but this is our basis for where we started in looking at, can we find efficiencies in a joint transmission tariff? So from a dollar perspective, on an annual transmission revenue requirement, we're looking at $500+ million for all the utilities listed, and line mileage wise of just over 15,000 miles. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits that we see? One transmission provider, which would allow for the de-pancaking of transmission charges. Currently, we each pay several of each other for transmission charges, and those charges are additive. And so there's this concept of de-pancaking, where we would only pay the one transmission charge where our load is synced. It also has potential to be a foundation for an organized market. There's been a lot of discussion in the West over the last several years, not just with the PacifiCorp potential merger into California ISO, but prior to that, there was a lot of interest in why the West didn't have organized markets. And so part of this effort is for us to take a look at what value there may be in that, if any. All load is network load of the Mountain West Transmission Group. There would be a single determination of transmission capability, and a big change for us would be that we would move from what we have here in the West, which is contract path, to a flow-based methodology. The flow-based methodology is the predominant methodology used in the East, and we have not traditionally used that here in the West, but there are certainly efficiencies from doing that. And then, of course, on the transmission planning side, FERC Order 1000 is a big part of our transmission world these days. We would avoid, hopefully, duplication of facility investments, one point of contact for system interconnections versus having to go to each of the 7 participants right now if you wanted to potentially site a new resource. Additional siting opportunities for new resources, and may assist in addressing future resource issues. So again, we're looking at our current state and also looking in the future to see if there's any efficiencies we can find by pooling together our resources and broadening our footprint. So next slide, we talk about the significant work to date. I've already mentioned the construct of the group, the Mountain West Transmission Group. It's a variety of IOUs, municipals, G&Ts, and federal PMAs. And we've successfully met over 50 meetings over the last few years. And we have come out progressing, which is, I think, a significant accomplishment. And that progress has been in a couple areas, one of which is developing some rate design philosophies for a joint transmission tariff. And with that joint transmission tariff, we also have to look at the effect of what de-pancaking does to some of the transmission providers in the footprint. It creates essentially some cost shifts, some positives and some negatives for the entities. Although I would say as an overall group footprint, it was a positive outcome, but some entities aren't as positively, don't have as positive an outcome as others. And so there's this concept of cost shift mitigation that we've talked through and helping those entities that may not see the benefit as much as others in compensating them with what we call cost shift mitigation. And I'll talk about that a little bit further down. We've developed and signed an MOU summarizing our work to date, which has been over 3 years, as I suggested. 50 meetings, we meet every other week, and now as our activities are progressing, we actually have meetings in between those every 2-week meetings. So we're heavy at it. This is, for some of us, a primary responsibility for what we do. We're currently reviewing RTO responses to Mountain West Transmission Group requests for information. So we sent out an RFI to the 4 largest market operators. Those were California ISO, PJM, MISO, and SPP, and we're reviewing those. Some of you may have heard that we have sent a letter to the California ISO indicating we won't be pursuing the California ISO option any further at this time, so we've narrowed our view right now to the remaining 3 respondents. We're currently conducting a market study with a nationally renowned organization to evaluate resource side benefits of having a joint tariff, as well as a day 2 market. So as I mentioned, we looked at the joint transmission tariff and the benefits of de-pancaking the transmission rates, and we're also looking to evaluate the market side benefits. And of course, we have ongoing outreach in various forums. So back a little bit on the rate design, I would call this the foundation, the transmission foundation. We hired a well-respected consultant to assist us with this as well. There's 8 zones. There's this concept of pricing zones, or pricing zones that we've developed. It's similar, if you've heard of SPP, they have pricing zones, and so that's what we've split ourselves into. Each transmission owner is a zone except tri-state, and you may ask yourself why, and we've done several iterations. We did a postage stamp look. We did several license plate zone looks, looking at different ways to parse the load and the transmission dollars that are associated for the facilities associated with that load. And we came up with this as the best construct as far as mitigating cost shifts and overall benefit to the group. So Tri-State's load and facilities are split between the Western LAP and the Piesco zones. And then Cheyenne facilities are not recovered under the tariff. I also mentioned something about a cost shift mitigation. For the first 7 years, it would be accomplished through this concept of a single regional through and out rate applied to the point-to-point transmission reservations that leave the footprint. And with that, we feel that we're able to largely mitigate cost shifts on the transmission side of the house. All right, back to our RFI. I spoke about this just a few minutes ago, but a little bit more on that. We issued it to California ISO, MISO, PJM, and SPP in May. All 4 responded in mid-July, and we obtained information from them on cost estimates for services for the transmission tariff administrator, as well as a full market RTO administrator. And so those services are listed here: TSP services, ancillary services, market operator, the planning concepts that are integral to Order 1000 and Order 890 planning. Again, all submitted proposals, and we've conducted follow-up meetings with each, and we continue to review the responses from the three I mentioned, which would be SPP, MISO, and PJM. And we consider the RFI as one of the multiple resources of information to assist our group in the path going forward. Next slide, please. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about the market study. Again, this is with a nationally known company. We've executed a study agreement and an NDA with that company, and so we all felt comfortable giving up some of our sensitive data because we were able to execute that NDA. And with giving up some of that sensitive data, we hope to have more accurate results. We've completed phase 1 of that study, which was a 2016 look. We did a status quo with the 9 tariffs, so what's the cost of doing business today? And we then did another case where we removed the pancake transmission charges to simulate a joint tariff. We added a full day-ahead market structure as another case, and all study cases showed benefits to all participants. We're currently in the midst of a 2024 look, so we did a couple scenario analysis looking at, with WAPA in our footprint, low hydro, high load, looking at high gas prices, and looking at some of the other scenarios that may play out in the year 2024. We anticipate receiving those results within the next week. And then it'll probably take us, 2 or 3 weeks for each of the companies to digest some of that intense modeling data and determine the results of those studies. So, within the next few weeks, you would be able to contact any one of the companies that are our participant and see if we are reporting benefits as we were for the 2016 case, which I suspect we will, but that's yet to be seen. So outreach, what are we doing? Where are we at? We've visited with state regulatory authorities. Just last week I was up here with Black Hills Power and Precor at the State Commission in Wyoming. We're also visiting with the Colorado Commission along with Black Hills, Tri-State is along with Black Hills and Public Service Company of Colorado. Western's ongoing outreach to its preference customers. We have, of course, outreach to our individual constituents, other stakeholder organizations. We've had several individuals who participate in Mountain West Transmission Group speaking at various forums. We, of course, are engaged with the RTOs that I've mentioned before. And also, we have been back to FERC once to talk with them about the concept, and we plan on going once or twice more to talk with them a little bit more about this project that we're pursuing. And that's all I have as far as the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Do you have any questions for Mary? Okay.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And the question was, what's the timing of this? What are we looking for as far as implementation? Again, we're meeting regularly. We're looking to hopefully have a decision on if we're going to go to an RTO, which RTO we would be negotiating with by the end of this year. And then assuming that we are able to progress through those conversations, of course, this is our opportunity to shape what we may have as our relationship with that RTO. We don't feel we're necessarily defined by what the existing construct of each of the RTOs is, and they've actually indicated to us in their RFI responses that there is some opportunity for regional flexibility for Western entities. And so we would hope to keep those discussions going with them actively at the beginning of 2017 with a potential market implementation in early 2019.
Hello. Quick question for you, and I may be getting out of your area of expertise, but just was wondering if you had an idea of the total amount of customers or megawatts served within the footprint that you're looking at.
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure. For Tri-State, I can only speak to Tri-State with any certainty. Of course, we have 1.5 million customers across a 4-state region, and this includes almost all of that territory, with the exception of the majority of New Mexico. We do include the northeastern part of New Mexico, but there's about roughly 300 megawatts of load down in New Mexico that is not part of this current footprint. But as far as the other entities, unfortunately, I don't have that answer for you, but I can certainly get that answer back to you.
You had mentioned earlier that you broke off conversations with Cal ISO, per se. Can you add a little color to that as to reasons why?
Sure. And so, there's been a lot going on with California ISO. There's a lot of uncertainty, of course, and with their recent announcement about the fact that they weren't going to be able to get the full RTO out-of-state participation to the legislature this year, we felt like they weren't able to really respond to us in the manner that we were looking to have a response, which is full RTO participation. And so we just took the opportunity to let them know that at this time we won't be pursuing them any further.
I've got a question for
Sure.
you. So, historically, WIA has been very focused on additional new transmission projects, and 5-6 years ago, there was 7, 8. There were a lot of projects on the books that, for various reasons, economics, whatnot, have kind of gone quiet, I guess is probably the best term to put that. Would a group like this, a planning group like this, mean probably more opportunity for additional projects, or through sort of sharing of resources, probably, maybe not as much of an opportunity? I know each project certainly will stand on its own merits one way or the other, but maybe, could you talk a little bit about what this means for new transmission within the region?
Sure, yes, a great question, thank you. So impact on new transmission build-out. Well, one of the things in the slideshow that I had mentioned is, we think that it'll create additional efficiencies, I would say, in transmission planning, and that we would be able to have, under an organized construct, a single set of rules that we're planning our transmission by. And of course, one of the big things that I didn't speak to heavily in this and in my presentation, but that I had mentioned we're meeting often, and one of those things that we're meeting often about is cost allocation for future transmission facilities. There's a lot behind those words I just said and what that means to each of the individual entities. And so we're looking at how do we build reliability projects to serve loads, to serve our customers reliably. We want to be able to make sure we protect our ability to continue to do that the way we do today. That's an integral part of our businesses, and we value that, and we want to make sure we maintain that. The next is looking at larger scale projects and how will those be developed. And we're looking at existing RTO structures, some of the cost allocation and planning methodologies they use of SPP and MISO and PJM, and saying, okay, here's the parameters they use, whether it be a bright line voltage threshold to cost allocate, whether it be some parameter around cost benefit analysis, and trying to incorporate those to be the best fit for what we have for these entities here on the West. We think we have a real opportunity to work with these RTOs to develop a best fit for the Western footprint. And so I think whether or not it'll lead to more projects, I would be speculating if I answered, but will it lead to efficiencies? I absolutely believe it will.
And I guess sort of a follow-up on that is, could you speak a little bit as to what role the Wyoming Public Service Commission would play in that? Because I know they've been very active and vocal with regards to sort of the Pacificor, Cal ISO issues. So what role would the PSC play of that? Have you had any conversations with them, and have they
Sure.
given any sort of indication as to whether they'd look at something like this favorably?
Sure. So let me first say I'm here speaking on behalf of Mary Ann Zehr from Tri-State and not on behalf of the Mountain West Transmission Group. We don't have a governance, so we just sort of speak. and with that understanding that we're not necessarily making a representation on Mountain West Transmission Group. But I mentioned that we did meet. Tri-State and Precor and Black Hills met with the Wyoming Commission last week. My understanding is that Black Hills Power has also met with them previously and also has plans to meet with them again throughout this year. We met with staff last week, and our goal was to try to educate them on what we were looking at, make sure they're in the mix of all the various dynamics that are happening that each company is reviewing. Of course, we're doing that with the hopes that we get each commission, each state that the public utilities operate in, their support on this, and I'm hopeful that that will happen.
Do you have any questions from the audience on this? Or from my board?
I
All right.
will offer too, I did bring a FAQ sheet and there's plenty here for everybody. I'll leave them in the back there. Please feel free to take that with you. And also leave a couple cards if you have any questions or you want to talk any further, please feel free to give me a call and I'd be happy to talk with you about those.
All right. Thank you very much for
Thank
taking
you.
the trip up.